Hey, Foot Clan, before we start today's show, I want to remind you about jointhefoot.com, our growing and thriving, the best fantasy football community on the planet. We enjoyed a fantastic live stream with some of the listeners getting into the ins and out of football and some other really fun stuff. There's an extra show every week. There's all kinds of cool stuff. Help support the show. Jointhefoot.com.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast, coming to you from the FantasyJocks.com studios with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
It's Wednesday. Mike's talking first.
Whoa, what does that mean?
That means I'm running the show. Thank you for joining the podcast, the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Usually Andy, Mike, and Jason. Just today, Mike and Jason.
My nemesis, as I will call him, is no longer here, as he kicked me out of the playoffs.
That's a very good point. There could be some speculation among the Foot Clan of the reason for Andy's disappearance.
Look, we have no idea where he is, and no one can find him.
So. That could be related to a loss, a big fantasy football loss, or it may not.
Yeah, I mean, some people go on tilt. Some people go cray-cray.
And when they're on tilt, we do things that sometimes we don't feel proud about. Sometimes we don't even remember doing them.
Yeah. No, he is Andy is fine. He has lost his voice a little bit. See, in Arizona, winter has come. Okay, I'm talking you don't even know what winter is like until you've had it in the 40s.
We went from 90s to 40s in the matter of a couple days.
Yes, 48 hours.
I've heard we're 8 to 10 degrees under what we're supposed to be, or what's the average.
Incredible.
So, as I said, the Fantasy Footballers Podcast, the Wednesday edition. We got Pump the Brakes, the spectacular O'Reilly Auto Parts Pump the Brakes. We got some mailbag. We're going to talk about the Thursday night football game. We need you to head over to the fantasyfootballers.com. That's part of our home base. We got articles going up all the time. We just got the snap count article, the weekly snap count article. This is fantastic information for looking towards the future.
It's such a good article to look at the trends of who is actually playing more and more. You know, you look at the box score and you see catches or carries, and sometimes that's not the whole story, but that article is great. If you're not reading that every week, you're missing out on a great trend setter.
That greatly alludes to my Pump the Brakes, because if you follow the box score, you think, oh, well, things might be okay for this guy. But then you look at actually how much he played and some weird circumstances.
Well, is it time to get in?
Sure, we going right into that?
Let's do it. O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Ow! All right.
We had a two-man that.
We didn't really know what was going. We locked eyes. We made it through.
I'm so impressed by you and your wit here. Okay, I'm gonna just throw out Andy's, because Andy did get in his Pump the Brakes. He wants to let people know, because sometimes
before his mysterious disappearance.
Yes, before his mysterious disappearance, where look, people, you need to go on Twitter and try to find Andy Holloway. Where in the world?
We'll say we have a full Carmen Sandiego situation. For sure.
But before he mysteriously disappeared after beating me.
Not related.
Unrelated. If you're a police officer, completely unrelated. But he wanted to tell people, pump the brakes on Ted Ginn Jr., because whenever a guy goes back-to-back, big weeks, and last season, Ted Ginn was very reliable. Shockingly, he got those down the field passes, but the reality is he has single-digit performances in the preceding 9 weeks to that. He is not a reliable asset. I believe they play Seattle. Very not good for your wide receivers.
It's very not good.
So, you don't need to go pick up Ted Ginn, and you certainly don't need to play him.
Yeah, the thing about Ted Ginn is, because Calvin is back, Ted Ginn kind of worked himself into being, he was on the field a ton last year. You didn't just have to bank on that 180-yard bomb for a fantasy performance from Ted Ginn, but that's what we've returned to. We've returned to the norm.
Yeah.
So the entire Panthers offense has basically returned to the norm.
Who's your pump the brakes?
I'm going with Coby Fleener.
Oh, man.
Look, you're going to want to play him. I want to play him. It's Detroit. It's at home. The stars are aligned. George Clooney and Marky Mark, seems like the tickets are booked.
Man, this is
That's what I'm saying.
This is a tough pump.
You want to play him.
I do. I look at this and I say, I think you can play Coby Fleener this week. You're telling people hold off on those feelings?
I'm very concerned. And here's why. Look, we have Brandin Cooks in this weird anomalous game where Brandin Cooks has always had at least 3 targets. He was not even targeted. And he's come out and he's voiced his displeasure with being inactive in the offense. Coby Fleener was in for 24.3% of snaps. That is ridiculously low.
And the reality is that's kind of been the trend. He has
yes,
not
he's been moving down. And you know who's been moving up? Josh Hill.
Right. However, Josh Hill is moving up, I think, more in running situations, and Coby Fleener still leads, I believe, in target routes run from the tight end.
And that's fun. That's why I'm pumping the brakes here, because I'm not 100% sure what to make of this situation where the snap percentage just keep going down.
Sure.
While Josh Hill's involvement is going up, the Brandin Cooks anomaly, he'll be back. He'll be back this week. So I'm just saying there might be a better option for you, even on your waiver wire, than Coby Fleener. So who do you got?
My guy.
Oh, come on.
Oh, yeah, you know it.
Oh, come on.
Oh, I love this. This was my favorite pump the break of the season.
This is a spite. This
It's
is spiteful.
not just spite. Look, Davante Adams certainly crushed me this week, and I'm not happy with him right now. And look, I'm not saying that he's going to mysteriously disappear, okay? Like Andy Holloway, who used Davante Adams to crush my hope and dreams in the league of record of a back-to-back championship. But here's the reality. Davante Adams, he made some incredible catches this last week. He had 5 for 113 yards and 2 touchdowns. That is phenomenal. But he only had 6 targets in the game. And it is very, very rare for a 6-target game to be the type of game that ends up 5, 113, and 2. That few of targets in a game, now you look towards the future and you say, okay, well, he just had a monster game. Is he going to blow up again? Is he the new number 1? Is he the guy there? Well, this coming week he plays Houston, which is terrible for wide receivers, and he follows that up with Seattle, which is worse for wide receivers. Those two matchups, when you're only getting 6 targets, all I'm saying, look, I've got rosters where I will still be playing Davante Adams if I don't have, a better option. But I am saying this huge, monstrous game that he had, and he's had several this year on the season, he's been a valuable wide receiver, but he is not going to be filling the box score up the way that he did this last week on 6 targets against 2 of the best defenses against wide receivers over the next 2 weeks. So I'm just saying, whoa, Nelly, pump the brakes.
It's fair with the Houston and Seattle coming up, but Adams has been getting it done with low catch volume in the last couple of weeks. So there we go. The pump the brakes. We got Coby Fleener, Ted Ginn Jr., Davante Adams. Like I said, that was the pump the brakes with O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices every day from O'Reilly. Let's jump into some news. Or not, because we seem to be muted over here. News.
Great job, Andy number 2.
Hold on.
Let's try it again.
Nope. We've seemed to have lost the sound effects channel, so do. Jump
News
in.
and notes
Thank
from
you.
around the league.
News and notes. Jordan Matthews has been diagnosed with a sprained right ankle, but he's expected to play against the Bengals in Week 13. Are you confident in Jordan Matthews?
Yeah, I mean the Bengals defense has not been great. I think you got to watch how he practices this week. You don't want a guy with a right ankle sprain, but to me he is. If he's practicing on Thursday in full, then I would start him against the Bengals.
This could be possibly with the show being only 50% verified, but that could be the situation. I think. Hold on. All right.
News and notes from around the league.
I am so proud of you.
I don't know what happened.
You know, this is something we should have brought up. Why are you hosting the show as an unverified person when the verified party
We
really,
talked about this. I'm a man of the people.
I should really be the one leading the charge.
No.
You think the sound wouldn't have worked if I was on that side
I'm
of the
draining the
desk?
swamp here. I'm taking the elites. I'm knocking them out.
Oh, God.
I'm joining the revolution.
All right.
Tyrell
Williams.
Tyrell Williams, you go.
Yeah, his shoulder injury is a right labrum issue. That's just, again, something to monitor. It's never good.
He can play through it. He played through a similar injury in college, but these kind of things, they limit your mobility. We saw Randall Cobb last year dealing with a shoulder injury all year, so it can limit you, but Tyrell Williams he's been fantastic.
He really has
and pretty consistent through the whole entire year. I will say Dontrell Inman, maybe a guy you pick. You know?
I don't pick him up. No, to me, Dontrell Inman. Look, he had a monster week this last week, and he had a monster week. When was it? Like week 3 or 4. I mean, it's not like this is a trend. If you look at all the weeks in between, where he has been the one guy who's not been injured for them, and he's been out there playing every single week. And he's had 2 of 12 weeks where they've been big weeks. I'm going to go ahead and play the odds on that he's not going to be the guy that I can start on a regular basis.
That's fair.
Here's some news that is really upsetting, sad, but completely not surprising. And that is that the Cardinals coach, Bruce Arians, revealed John Brown is still experiencing leg problems related to his sickle cell trait. That is...
Yeah, that's
clearly hampering him.
I mean, that's bad news, obviously, for John Brown. I would say that is good news for the future, though, of John Brown, that you have a
dynasty-wise.
Yeah, well, John Brown looked primed. He looked ready for a breakout.
I had him really as my breakout guy. I was looking at the trends of the careers between Antonio Brown and John Brown and the skill sets and the size and the speed and the routes and all those things, and I have been shocked how poor John Brown has played this year.
But to me, it's got a lot of it is this health problem. And we've seen several times where NFL players, all of a sudden they fall off the map, and halfway through the season, it comes out, oh, well, I had this health problem. Just off the top of my head, I'm remembering Patrick Peterson was an elite cornerback coming into the league,
got the diabetes,
and then he fell off. All of a sudden it was, wow, Patrick Peterson is a bust. But he turned out he had diabetes. As soon as he got that managed, she was back.
Yeah, they found that, during the season, and it took a year. It took that off season before he was able to figure out, okay, I've got my health in check. I know my routine. I know what's going to keep it. So, yeah, I guess for next year,
that's what I'm saying.
John Brown.
Put him on that list.
Is a guy that needs to go on that list and say next year John Brown could be good. But for this year, redraft playoffs, I think you can forget about John Brown.
I'd move on as well. ESPN's Mike Triplett reports, I talked about this, Brandin Cooks has, quote, growing frustration with his role in the Saints offense. And the funny note is here that Triplett cites Brandin Cooks as the source. So he went straight to the source.
Look, Triplett is great. I mean,
yes,
you know if he's saying something that it's coming straight from the source. I'm a little disappointed here in Brandin Cooks in the sense that they won 49-21. They blew out the Rams. I mean, they just crushed them. They had nothing wrong on the offense. Now, if I'm a wide receiver, if I'm the star and I'm out there and I'm not getting targets and I know I can burn this team and we're getting stopped, I am frustrated. I'm voicing my opinion, saying where are my targets? But if my targets are not necessary and are not needed, and we scored 49 points, and everyone can burn their opponent, do you really need to whine? Now, I do like for fantasy that he whined.
Squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Squeaky wheel gets the grease. We have seen it all sorts of times. Remember when Emmanuel Sanders was complaining and whining?
Remember when Sammy Watkins had it last year?
And you cry, and that quarterback is going to give you another look or two, and he's going to find that. And for a player like Brandin Cooks, who has that crazy elite speed, he is a guy that I would do the opposite of kind of a pump the brakes on, right? I mean, he had this really terrible game, but he does that. he has these games where he disappears.
Not 0 targets though.
No,
I mean,
that's
a complete outlier to me.
And so that's where I would not hop off of Brandin Cooks after this week.
Yeah, I mean, I can sympathize with Brandin Cooks here. We've played some flag football. Every once in a while, my number got called, and I get to be wide receiver, and I would play an entire game with no targets.
Well, yeah, but
I know that I can work these guys over.
Yeah, I don't know about that part. You know, Brandin Cooks has a.
Me and Brandin Cooks are basically the same guy.
I mean, when I think of you, Mike, it's what comes to mind is just
speed.
Speed. And if you don't believe us, remember we did a combine video in this offseason. Please go watch that. Watch how lightning fast.
I think it was a 5.7. I mean, I was
blazing. Really impressive. All right.
And speaking of a very similar situation.
Yes. This one is good because it came from Eli Manning himself.
Sterling Shepard was a 0 target in last week's game, but Eli Manning took it upon himself to actually apologize to Sterling Shepard.
That's great. That's where it's like, hey, bud, I got you next time. I'll pick up the next bill. Prior to week 12, Sterling Shepard has drawn at least 6 targets in each of the past 9 games.
Whew.
When you're talking for 9 straight games to have a minimum of 6 targets, that's pretty good. And so the apology coming from the quarterback, which is the only person that can control the destiny of where targets go, is a good sign. I basically what I do there is I erase this last week for Sterling Shepard, but I don't bump Sterling Shepard up to anywhere he was anywhere higher than before this week. It's just good to know that Eli saw it and cares. I don't think this affects anything. I just delete last week.
Panthers have placed center Ryan Kalil on the IR with the shoulder injury. He, I believe, was week 11 or so the injury, and then he re-aggravated it, so he's out. I mean, you have to slightly downgrade what the Panthers are doing, but I don't even know if I would go that far.
Yeah, a lot of times the center we have seen the trends
crucial.
Of center being crucial to the running game more than people. They just don't get enough publicity, but we have seen it when a center
it's
goes
all left
down,
tackle.
The running back can get hampered. But here with Jonathan Stewart, the amount of volume that they give to the running back, I think you're okay. I'm not changing anything.
And Falcons cornerback Desmond Trufant, torn pectoral. He is done for the season. The Atlanta defense is now even worse.
The Atlanta defense had one bright spot, and that was Trufant.
Well, they have a couple, but I mean,
their brightest spot was
Trufant.
And especially
even more points possible in Falcon games.
Especially when you look at points to the wide receivers and points through the air, points to the quarterback position. They are one of, if not, depending on which metric you're looking, they're either one of or they are the worst against the pass. And so to lose your number one cornerback does not help.
All right, before we jump into the mailbag, I want to thank today's sponsor, Pristine Auction, the absolute best sports memorabilia site on the planet. Look, Foot Clan, we're getting ready for our move. We're upgrading the digs, right?
Getting that new studio.
We're working on a new place. The first thing we did,
very first,
we said we don't need internet right now. You know what we need? We need the Pristine Auction jerseys on the wall. We need to spruce this place up.
And they look nice.
They look fantastic.
I got to leave while you mounted all of the Pristine Auction jerseys on the wall, and when I came back, I was like, wow, this is a showroom.
It looks spectacular, and you can do this too. You can say, hey, my office, I need to spruce this thing up. Jump on the Pristine Auction.
My dad came by the studio for the first time last night. He looked at it and he goes, whoa, how much are those? And I told him, and he was blown. He was like, what? You can get, like, he would just assume you think these are crazy expensive. They're not that expensive.
Because
you got to check it out.
It's they have tons of daily items, and it's an auction. So you'd be amazed what you can come in there and just sweep right out the feet of the highest bidder and say, nope.
That's mine.
That's mine.
That's a good deal. It's mine.
So head over to Pristine Auction. That's PRISTINE auction.com. You make a completely free account there. Completely free. And if you bet on something you don't win, not a problem.
Yeah.
You pay nothing. And make sure when you sign up with your free account, you say, hey, the Fantasy Footballers sent me.
Yeah, and we also want to make sure you are aware of the 5-4 Club. All three of us are members of the 5-4 Club. We've used it. Andy's used it for a solid year now before they were ever a sponsor. Look, we like to look good. Everyone feels better when you are looking good, except for me. I can speak to myself, and I'm pretty confident for you, Mike, and Andy as well. You don't know how to dress yourself to look, fashionable.
I asked the wife.
Yes, you asked the wife.
I asked the wife.
I don't want to go out and I don't want to shop for new fashionable clothes. You know what I would dream of? I would dream that I just get to open a box every month. It has fashionable clothes that fits me, that are comfortable, that are great looking, and I get them new every month.
Well, Jason,
That's what the 5-4 Club is.
making dreams come true.
I know, $60 a month, and you get a box worth way more value in there. In fact, there is a deal right now, and it's ending very, very, very soon. That is not a joke. The code is BALLERS. So if you're curious how easy it is to use 5-4, go to 54club.com, use the promo code BALLERS, and you're getting 40% off that first month. Plus, you get a pair of free sunglasses, and everyone who signs up in November will be receiving an exclusive collaboration capsule from iconic menswear designer Mark McNary. So the promo code is BALLERS. Sign up at 54club.com. Get a bunch of clothes that look great, are fashionable, and fit you well at 54club.com. Promo code BALLERS.
All right, let's jump into the mailbag, hopefully. Yes.
Mailbag.
Mailbag, I did it.
Man,
Not muted.
you sound really good when you do the mailbag drop.
Well, thank you.
I mean, you should be a singer. You're way better at that than at this.
Back in my younger days when I was a younger man. All right, let's jump into some Foot Clan mailbag here. This one comes from Jermaine in Baltimore. Hey, guys, love the show. Quick question. I see Crabtree on my waiver wire. Would you drop Michael Thomas, Kelvin Benjamin, or Brandon Marshall to pick him up?
Yeah, that's interesting.
I have my answer.
I have my answer as well. Obviously, all four of those are rosterable guys, and if there is a garbage position, if you've got a second tight end or a second or third quarterback in a one quarterback league that you don't need, I would drop one of those guys and definitely pick up Crabtree. But if I couldn't, and I had to say, pick the 4 best wide receivers, I know who my answer is. Who are you dropping?
I'm dropping Kelvin Benjamin.
Really?
Yes.
I am dropping Brandon Marshall.
Oh, okay.
But the point here is, I think Crabtree is a must-have,
Yes.
must-start.
I would rather have Crabtree than all 3 of those guys.
I think that's fair. I think Crabtree here is the number 1. He also has Julio Jones, he says. So Crabtree is the perfect type of second wide receiver.
Yes.
Where there's a target volume that gets it done. I like that. So you've got to pick between Kelvin Benjamin and Brandon Marshall.
Plus, I agree with Jason that this is a move that you have to make where hopefully there's someone else you can drop, because just to prevent someone else from the fact that Crabtree's on your waiver wire, someone must have overreacted to two weeks ago.
Yeah.
But you need to make sure that no one else can pick him up is crucial here. All right, this one, apparently we're looking way into the future here with Tony the Tooth in Minnesota. He's great. Week 15.
I think it's fair to look to Week 15. I do in all of my leagues right now.
Sure.
And I think most people listening who are playoff bound, this is the time of year when you're looking and saying, okay, Week 14, we're coming into Week 13. Maybe I've already got the playoffs locked. So playoffs start in 14. Some people playoffs start this week at 13, and they're looking at that schedule and trying to fit the pieces and get the right waivers. So what's Tony the Tooth's question?
Says Week 15, Dak Prescott versus Tampa Bay, or Colin K versus Atlanta, a Desmond Trufant-less Atlanta.
Whew! A Desmond Trufant-less Atlanta. Tampa Bay has been playing better defensively the last 2 weeks. Here is one, ironically, after I say it's okay to look into the future, here's one problem on this one specifically. I do not buy into Tampa Bay's 2-week stretch as a very good defense. I think over the next few weeks, you're going to see it exposed to what, just regress to the mean. I think it's going to turn back to what their defense actually is, in which case I would still take Dak. I think Dak is safer I realize the Truffantless Atlanta is a great matchup, but if I have to have one of those guys on my roster from now till then, not knowing what else happens in those weeks, I would choose Dak.
Yeah, that's very fair. If you are saying I can only keep one, I would keep Dak. Whew, that's tough. That's a very tough one. But I'm kind of the opposite side here of Jason. I think that Tampa Bay is getting healthy. They're getting players unsuspended, and they're just when teams get hot. This every year, right around this time, is when you see a couple of teams just,
especially defensively,
just start surging. Their defense melds together, and it's usually a defense we think, well, they're not actually very good. But then they completely change your opinion.
You know, the first half of last year, Kansas City and Houston, it's almost hard to remember. Those were teams. Those were teams that
awful. When
you had a guy playing, you targeted New Orleans, Kansas City, and Houston because they were awful. And now it's like, whoa, you don't target Kansas City and Houston. They're the best. So those things do happen. That's where I say this is a tough one because I think it comes down to the Tampa Bay defense more than anything. If they are legit, and we'll only see that over the next few weeks, then Cap would be better. If they're not, I would go Dak.
This one's from Sean in Frederick, Maryland.
Oh, I thought he was in.
He was inside of a human?
Inside of a human.
Like Alien?
Oh, yes. Kill me. Kill me.
Frederick wants to know, as a general rule, should I handcuff the best running back option or handcuff the running backs on my roster?
Okay, so general rule, you want to handcuff the running backs on your roster first. That is the point of a handcuff. It gives you security because your studs that you already have, that you've built your team around, when or if they go down, then you are protected. It's more of an insurance policy. However, it can't always be a general rule of thumb because it depends on who your guys are. If your running backs are Melvin Gordon and Jordan Howard and Todd Gurley, I don't think they're handcuffs. They're not going to save you if those guys go down. I don't think any one of the – I would rather have Alfred Morris than any one of those guys handcuffs because, I mean, maybe Benny Cunningham is
the thing
legit.
Is, though, with the handcuffing of your own running backs, even if Benny Cunningham is not a super spectacular, sexy option, you think, oh, Benny Cunningham has the backfield to himself, I'm going to put him in. I think Benny Cunningham is actually a pretty decent running back.
But
the thing is, you know he will get points.
Right.
And that's everything. Maybe your handcuff
options. And if
options,
Todd Gurley goes down and you picked up Alfred Morris, you don't have any guarantee
You still
of
get
points.
2 points a week instead of maybe you're getting 7.
And that's why the general rule is to handcuff your own guys first. So let's just take just that specific option. Would you, Mike, you only have Todd Gurley on your team, would you rather have Benny Cunningham or Alfred Morris?
I would go Cunningham. I would go insurance.
I think if I had another solid running back, then I would choose that. If I didn't, if I had Todd Gurley and then, it's kind of a weak class, I'm going to go with the home run option for Alf and hope that I can actually improve my
I'll use my team as example. In our league of record, I'm just running out the Bills running backs and the Tampa Bay running backs.
Yeah, your roster's loaded with all of them.
Yeah, and it has been. When, like last week, Gillislee was out, I threw Jonathan Williams on my bench just in case. I just keep handcuffing the handcuff of the handcuff.
Yeah.
I'm just locking down a particular backfield because I don't have other options. So I want to make sure that I have running back points moving forward.
This is the time of year we change that. In draft season, we don't really encourage grabbing handcuffs, but once you have established your team and you're on the playoff track, you've got to have those insurance policies.
Because you're also narrowing out your depth.
Yeah.
You want your best possible team. All right, this one, we're in a crazy world. A crazy world. Matthew in Auburn, Washington. Julio Jones or Taylor Gabriel? Taylor has been very consistent.
And
Julio Jones, it's Julio Jones. I'm not even thinking about it, but I will say this. Julio Jones, this year, when he's been great, he's been elite. If he is having an off game, he is terrible.
Yeah, this is not really a legitimate question. I mean, I get seeing the last few weeks and going, should I? Well, put it this way. You're talking about, should you use currently the number 3 wide receiver in fantasy or currently the number 51 wide receiver in fantasy? And okay, throw those out because the last few weeks have been better. Just look at targets. Okay, it's good that you're not getting caught up with the name, right? A lot of times people go, his name is Brandon Marshall. He's the best.
Yeah.
That
would be a better question. You say, hey, should I play Brandon Marshall
or Taylor
Gabriel?
Then you got a legit question. But, look, they're on the same team. Julio Jones is averaging 9.5 targets a game. Gabriel's still averaging 3.5. I'm taking. I mean, it's always Julio here.
All right, we got Paul P. I don't know if this is really a question or if he's just doing some venting here, but he says, Paul P. in St. Louis, can someone explain how I can be the highest scoring team, but somehow have the worst record in the league?
Oh, brutal. Those happen.
I don't know if I've seen highest scoring and worst record
this late in the year.
Yeah, combined. I definitely have plenty of times seen highest scoring and you're somehow the 5 or 6 seed.
Yeah, that is brutal. Here's the deal, Paul. Fantasy football is fun. It is a great time. It's a time of camaraderie with your friends or your family or your colleagues or whoever your league is with. It can be so frustrating sometimes because there is absolutely a component of luck, especially when you're in these head-to-head matchups, which I prefer. I don't like the roto system, the all play. I'm not a fan of that. I like the matchups. I like the bad beats or the crushing losses. Those are. But the
you're
reality
standing
is,
by this after what happened to you on Monday night.
Even after that, I'm not gonna go and say, hey, next year, because I had
the system.
I think I had the 3rd highest points scored in the league this week, and I was out of the playoffs because Andy had more. Thanks, Davante Adams. You've got to be able to roll with the punches. Unfortunately, in your situation, it's going to take you more than a year. You know what I mean? Like, usually there's a bad beat. And so the next week, you just got to let that roll off. This one is just a bad year. Don't give up on fantasy. Play. Listen through the offseason. And obviously, you know what you're doing. You're leading the league in scoring.
I will throw out this suggestion to you, Paul P. In my money league, we run a kind of a different system. And you have to track this offline because nobody just allows you to do it.
It's a good system.
It's kind of a mixture of head-to-head and all play. So every week you get a point if you win your matchup. But on top of that, the top 6 scores of the week, they also get a point. So you can get 2 points
I would say
every single week.
I would guess that most weeks, at least 3 or 4 people are getting 2 points, right? Because they won because they scored the most.
But there are the teams they happen to be playing. They're the 2nd lowest scoring team of the week. They happen to play against the lowest scoring team of the week.
They only get
a point.
Or vice versa, you're a high scoring team and you got trounced by an even higher scoring.
Exactly.
You're still going to get a point.
So it brings some balance to it.
You've been in that league for years, so
yes.
you know from long experience whether that is broken or balanced.
And I think it's at this point now, like you said, it has been a couple of years. I like it. I think it's been very balanced and helped things out where you're not seeing just true anomaly things like this where a team can have the most points and be in last place.
Yeah, that's hard.
Torrey and Hicks, Randall, Cobb, or Quincy Enunwa this week for my flex in a standard league. Standard
league. I am definitely here going with Quincy Enunwa.
Chase those points?
I don't feel like I'm chasing those points. Since week 7, right, the last few weeks, Randall Cobb has not had a double-digit performance since week 7. Since week 7, Quincy Enunwa has had 3 double-digit point scoring. On the season, he's got 5. And I think Quincy Enunwa has been pretty good. He was hampered by a few nagging little injuries in the middle of the season. And since he looked good this last week, I'm going with him. Plus, so that's just in general, right? That's in an ethereal plane, in a vacuum. That's head-to-head. But now you take it in their matchups, and you've got Cobb going up against Houston, which is not a very good matchup, and you've got the New York Jets at home against Indianapolis, I prefer the matchup. I prefer the player. So I'm going Enunwa here.
I don't blame you. All right, Justin in New York. I have Latavius, and I've already clinched the number 1 seed for my playoffs. Should I drop Paul Perkins to pick up DeAndre Washington? Jalen Richard is already on my team. He has Rawls.
He's already on his team?
Yes. Rawls, Starks, Crowell are the other running backs. So that just brings up kind of a quick. I don't know if this was a news blurb or not, but we talked about DeAndre Washington, healthy scratch last week. Jalen Richard, to me, if you want to handcuff Latavius Murray, Jalen Richard is the guy to own. Washington will be active, of course, if Murray were to go down, and they will be splitting. But Richard would be the guy to own. Especially, this is a PPR league, so especially in PPR.
For sure. You just brought up the Buffalo backfield where, when Gilly went down, then you went and picked up the next tier. But you didn't have all three. You didn't have John Williams.
Correct. And since I've already moved on from Jonathan Williams.
Yeah. Now, reading his question, I think someone else might actually have Jalen Richard.
No, he says Jalen Richard. Oh, already on a team. Okay, yes, you are correct. I misread that.
So I'm not going to pick up DeAndre Washington. If you're a healthy scratch, you're not the handcuff. I would say this: if Latavius went down, there would probably be a 50-50 timeshare or a 55-45 between Jalen Richard and DeAndre Washington. I just don't know if it's. I guess I'm not really digging Paul Perkins right now either.
Yeah, and so between Perkins, Rawls, Starks, and Crowell.
Was that Paul Perkins writing in a couple questions ago? Paul P. Did he
just asking for a friend?
He couldn't say his last name because he didn't want people to know, but that makes sense.
All right. Jordan in Eugene, Oregon. Should I drop AJ Green?
Oh.
Have Green and Jeffery on the bench.
Alshon, Jeffery, and AJ Green on the same team? That is brutal.
Should I drop Green or hold for the playoffs? If you're in the playoffs, let's say you're secure, you're not, I got to win and get in, and somehow a waiver wire guy is going to go right in your starting lineup. I mean, that's a lot of variables. I don't know if that can happen, but I'm not
Here's the way I look at
him.
These. I've got so many AJ Green questions. What do I do? And here's the stupid thing. At least right now, he's listed as doubtful. I've seen. Our man Brooks was really upset because
is that John Fox?
He couldn't move him into the IR spot because he was doubtful and not out.
That's pretty common.
So here's kind of how I approach those questions. Sometimes I ask it from reverse. I say, if AJ Green was on waivers, would I pick him up right now? Would I do that?
Probably.
And usually it's going to be team dependent. If I've got a really good team, I think that if I've got a garbage team, I'm definitely picking him up. If I've got a bunch of guys that I can drop, I'm going to pick up AJ Green and hope that he's better. If I've got a really solid team, I probably don't have a guy that I would be willing to drop for AJ Green, who might not even be back this season. So Look at it from that direction, and I think then you've got to decide. It's really a matter of who's out there on waivers. But man, having AJ Green and Alshon Jeffery holding up your bench, you probably need to get rid of one.
That's very unfortunate. And I will say, according to Football Outsiders, the Bengals have a 6% chance to make the playoffs. Ipso facto, the Bengals are not making the playoffs.
They would be stupid to.
So why would you rush AJ Green back? But maybe they do. I'm not, but I can't drop. I cannot be in a situation where I head into championship week, and all of a sudden I'm looking across the aisle, and there's a healthy AJ Green about to play against me. I can't live with that scenario. That's a low probability scenario, but I wouldn't be able. I would tilt some. I would be on my head. I would live upside down for the rest of my life.
Here's another rule of thumb, though. You have to win to keep going in the playoffs. Do what you need to do to win. If you can hold on to AJ Green and win, do that. If you need to make a move because you don't have a good player and there's one available on waivers and it takes dropping him, the question that I actually would have, and this one comes in from Jason M. from Phoenix, Arizona. Who would you rather drop, A.J. Green or Alshon Jeffery? And let me present it to you like this.
Is this redraft or keeper?
This is just redraft.
Okay,
this is just
I'm not dropping either. But
this season,
redraft.
This season, you have Alshon Jeffery. We know is coming back in Week 15. We know that. So you've got to guarantee he comes back. But when he comes back, you've got Matt Barkley, who looked all right. However, probably isn't going to target that number one wide receiver because usually the third string doesn't.
He may, though. I would rather have Alshon. I'd rather have Alshon than A.J. Green because I know that he's going to be back. And A.J. Green is playing for money. Alshon Jeffery is playing for money. He's on a franchise contract. He's going to be in that locker room. I'm writing a narrative now.
That's probably why he's suspended anyway. So he popped those PEDs
so he can stay healthy.
Yeah.
Well, just regardless, I'd rather have Alshon. I know he's going to be back. So, Travis in California. This is a Kaepernick question. We're going to see how much you love Colin Kaepernick moving forward. Can I drop Cam Newton and trust in Colin Kaepernick to get me through the championship? Ooh. Also has Derek Carr. No one else to drop.
All right, so here's the reality. Since Week 6, when Colin Kaepernick became the starter, over that period of time, on an average per game, not on a total, Colin Kaepernick is the 7th best quarterback. We talked about that a couple days ago. In that same time span, Cam Newton is the 12th best quarterback.
That's not terrible.
It's not terrible, but obviously it gives legitimacy to the question of should I drop Cam for Colin Kaepernick? And I would say no. And here's why. While Colin Kaepernick has an okay playoff schedule, Cam Newton has a fantastic playoff schedule. His playoff schedule now if your playoffs are in Week 13, not so much because, this week he's playing Seattle. But Week 14, 15, 16, those are the usual suspects for your playoff weeks. You're talking about San Diego, Washington, Atlanta. Cam Newton in those games with teams that can score with suspect defenses, I like Cam Newton for the playoffs.
Yeah, Cam Newton is definitely falling into that category of name for me.
Yeah.
It's Cam Newton.
See, I
feel
have
to play him.
I feel like I took the name out early this season for me because I expected regression for Carolina, and I haven't been super high on Cam this year, but I do like his playoff schedule. The playoff schedule for Colin Kaepernick is pretty darn good too. Chicago, the New York Jets, and Atlanta.
All right.
Or I'm sorry, New York Jets, Atlanta, LA Rams. I was like, wait, they can't both play Atlanta in Week 16.
Everybody's playing Atlanta.
It's a 2-on-1. I'd take the 2.
I think I'd rather have the 1.
Well, you'd rather have the 1 for fantasy.
You got to split up the fantasy points.
Yeah,
that's no
that's
good.
True.
All right, Mike in Chicago. This is a 2-quarterback league. Drop Joey Flacco for Barkley or Goff in a 2-quarterback league.
Wow.
I don't have a problem with it.
Here's
my concern. Here's my concern. Matt Barkley was 1 week. You have John Fox steering the ship, so we don't know yet on Jay Cutler. We don't know if Jay Cutty is done. He is likely done. I'm saying it's high 90% probability you'll never see Jay Cutler in a Chicago uniform.
That's how I have it. I have Jay Cutler done for the year. I'm not listening to John Fox. I don't think they need him. I don't think they like him.
But if Joe Flacco was dropped in a 2-quarterback league, someone will pick him up. So it's not I can do a takesy-backsy and say.
Look, I would drop Flacco probably for either of these guys. Probably for either. I would drop him for Matt Barkley or for Jared Goff. Both have really good playoff schedules. Goff's got Seattle in Week 15, which is not good, but it's sandwiched with, again, Atlanta and San Francisco. Mike, I don't know how to say that. Tagliere, is that how you say his name?
I was just going to say, I was going to shout out friend of the show, Mike.
Yeah, he had this great tweet the other day. He said, a lot of people are discounting Jared Goff's 3-touchdown performance, saying that, it was against New Orleans. Anyone can do that. Anyone can do that against. He said, yeah, except No one has this year. This year, no one has thrown for 3 touchdowns against New Orleans except Jared Goff. So Jared Goff is more assured as the starter, but I'm not, I think the Rams have a legitimate good defense. And they're not always going to play Drew Brees. I don't think it was the New Orleans defense that was the issue. I think it was New Orleans offense. They scored 49 points, and Jared Goff had to air it out. And granted, those came early, but so did New Orleans. New Orleans points came the whole game. And so I think Jared Goff is not going to be in a situation where he's airing it out. Matt Barkley will be. I'm taking Barkley here. Drop Flacco for Barkley. Final offer.
Final offer.
Yes. That's how I see it.
Final answer.
There you sure. No, I'm sticking with offer.
It's still an
That's
offer?
my final offer.
It's your
because you don't have to take it. You can keep Flacco. I'm just my final offer.
You're making an offer to the waiver wire.
Yes, I'm making an offer to.
Would you like Joe Flacco, Mr. Waiver Wire?
Yes, there you go.
All right, Andrew in Warsaw. Someone offered me Jameis Winston for Colin Kaepernick. Do I do it? You would get Jameis.
I would do it. I would rather have Jameis.
I would. I think I'd rather have Jameis too. I mean, which is funny that I even hesitate on this because, waivers probably just ran through in our league, but I could have picked up Kaepernick. No, Andy hasn't.
Yes. Andy has.
So I didn't even have that option. But if Kaepernick was available, I wouldn't drop Winston to get him. So I think that makes it an easy answer for me that I'd rather have Jameis.
Yeah.
You agree?
A lot of yes, I completely agree. Look, all of these Colin Kaepernick questions are legitimate. They are all legitimate. He should be rostered. He is worthy of being in that discussion rest of season as Jameis, as Cam, as all of these guys. We have I think a bigger body of work and more reasons to believe in the Cam and the Jameis over Cap. But if at the end of the year we look back and Cap was the guy that got it done and he finished the second half better than those two guys, you won't find any surprise out of either of us.
Joshua in Conway says, "Hey guys, I'm in a full PPR league. Who is the preferred handcuff for Doug Martin? Jacquizz Rodgers or Charles Sims?"
Charles Sims is going to be your handcuff because unless Doug Martin gets injured this week in practice, he's going to get injured in the game more than likely. I mean, if an injury comes, I'm not wishing that or hoping that. I'm just saying if one comes and the handcuff
you gotta
matters,
go through the logic.
Then next week is the game that you're going to use him,
and
that is when he is.
Week 14 is when Sims is eligible to return.
Yeah,
we'll say we aren't 100% that he's going to be back, but I imagine if there's a scenario.
He's been back at practice for 2 weeks. When those happen and when a guy is eligible to come back and comes back to practice right away, we've seen it several times this year. We saw it with Dion Lewis. Then they activate him exactly when he's eligible to come. That's my expectation with Charles Sims, and I think he's available week 14. That's the soonest you'll probably need the handcuff, so I'm going Charles Sims.
All right, this one's
final offer.
All right, we'll do a quickie right here. Sean Anderson in San Diego. I have David Johnson. Should I get his handcuff? And if so, who is it?
Yeah, I guess so.
I would.
Yeah,
It's Andre Ellington.
For sure.
But this is just, you're not going to get David Johnson. If Andre Ellington becomes the starter, this is not holy crap, a good backup now is elevated and is going to get a ton of work. This is, if David Johnson goes down, you have a running back who you know is going to guaranteed get touches and get you some points to help possibly keep you above the water.
Yeah, and it's worth noting on this question with these new IR rules, Tyvon Branch is set to return for the Cardinals from IR, and that precludes they chose him to come back. That means Chris Johnson cannot come back off of the IR this season, so it is certainly Andre Ellington.
All right, this one's from Amanda in St. John, New Brunswick, Canada.
Oh, bonjour!
It's a place with many names. Many names. And her question is basically, it's an AJ Green related question, and she wants to free up bench spots for defenses. Looking for someone to play in place of the Vikings this week. She would have to drop AJ Green.
It's hard to drop AJ Green for defense. This is how I feel. If you need to win to get in, this is probably the last week of your playoffs. Almost certainly. Very rare for playoffs not to start until week 15. So if this is the last week and you need a win, you do what you got to do. And I would happily drop AJ Green to make sure I get in, because you can't win that hashtag Foot Clan title.
You can't make the tub. Wait, can't make the club if you're in the tub, and you can't win the title if you're in idle.
There you go.
Yeah.
I'll give you a solid D plus. D plus.
I would say for rhyming a word like title as I was speaking it.
All right, C minus. you won over. Hey, they're both passing. Okay, you pass. But you gotta not be on idle so you can win the title.
I think it's good.
All right,
I'm sticking with it.
You're giving yourself an A plus.
Well, I'm a harsh grader, so I'll give myself a regular A. Strong A.
Super harsh.
All right, last question.
Oh, who gets it?
Max in Madison. More Kaepernick questions.
Wow.
So maybe we'll do one more since we seem to be talking Kaepernick.
You are a generous fellow today.
Cap or Brady this week? Winning in.
Cap or Brady this week? Well, Colin Kaepernick is going to be playing the hapless Chicago Bears in a game that Vegas has only 43.5 points for the over-under, which is relatively low, so they don't see this being a high-scoring game. And then you have the New England Patriots favored by 13.5 points against the Los Angeles Rams. Total over-under at 44.5, but obviously they see more points going to the Patriots.
Did you hear? We talked about this stat on the live stream, and I don't have it in front of me, so I can't quote it verbatim. But in the last two matchups of Jeff Fisher versus Billy Belichick, Bill Belichick has outscored Jeff Fisher, believe it was 107-6.
Well, you've got the best coach against the worst coach.
I mean, you're
in the history of the league.
Rams basically, or the Jeff Fisher teams basically averaged 3 points a game, 250.
Wow, that is delightful.
So with that knowledge,
yeah,
does that make you go?
Either way, with or without that piece of knowledge, I would still go Tom Brady. You've got a safe floor, and you've always got a higher ceiling. Nobody has a higher ceiling than Brady. If he goes out and throws 6 touchdowns in a game, you want that. And I do agree the matchup is much nicer I would rather play a guy against the Bears, but I'm not going to choose to play Colin Kaepernick over Brady. You just saw what Drew Brees did against that Rams defense, right?
Right. All right, and because we can't end on just Kaepernick, I'll do one more here. Chris in Nashville, Tennessee. What order would you rank the following tight ends this week and rest of season? Oh, well, that's a lot, Chris, but we'll see what we can do. Eric Ebron, Coby Fleener, Antonio Gates, and Cameron Brate.
All right, this week we got Cameron Brate against Kansas City. It's not too good. You got Eric Ebron coming off as Gooser, which public service announcement.
I'm not worried about it.
I am not worried about Ebron.
Good, I'm glad we agree.
All. I've seen a lot of questions like, what do I do? Do I trust this? Someone was saying, I lost to my wife because Eric Ebron goosed, and now I need to win this week. Can I trust him? Yes.
You shake your fist. You say, why I oughta keep starting you because you're a really good tight end for fantasy.
Right. And you're playing against New Orleans to boot. Who else did he have?
Fleener and Gates.
Well, you were pumping the brakes on Fleener, so I'm going to go with you on that. And then Gates, let's see.
I believe Gates also had the Gooser.
Yes, he did, and he's playing Tampa Bay in a high-scoring game. This week, I'm going to go double Goosers to start. I'm putting them at the top? I'm going to go Ebron, Gates, Brate, Fleener.
I would go Ebron, Brate, probably then Fleener over Gates.
And ironically, my rest of the season rankings are the exact same.
Yeah,
Ebron, Gates, Brate, Fleener.
For rest of the season, I would have a tough time picking between Ebron and Brate.
Yeah, so you would maybe order it Ebron, Brate, Gates, Fleener.
Yeah.
All right, fair enough.
All right, so we're going to wrap up the show.
Wanted to make sure we remind everybody before we're out of here, 54club.com. Their offer is expiring very, very soon. So make sure if you want to get a fresh, awesome wardrobe, a new wardrobe established month by month, make sure you go on there. Use the promo code BALLERS at 54club.com. You're going to get 40% off your first order, plus sunglasses, plus a bunch of great fitting, great looking clothes. So Go on 54club.com, promo code Ballers.
Look, Corey Hart said it best when he said, "Don't mess around with a man in shades." Oh no!
There you go.
Do you know?
I don't know.
I wear my sunglasses at night.
Oh, all right.
Don't mess around with the man in shades. No?
No, I'm with you now. Sure. That's great.
All right, Bookland. We will see you tomorrow. As always, go to fantasyjocks.com. That's where winners go for their fantasy gear. The promo code is footballers. We'll try to do better tomorrow. Hopefully, Andy's back to steer this ship as the mighty
if we
captain.
can find him.
Our fearless hero.
Where is he?
You should never have beat me. Another episode of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Join our fantasy football community
are we playing
on
this week, Mike?
jointhefoot.com.
Just watch
and follow us on Twitter @TheFFBallers.